I'm so surprised that one, that she admitted this, because this is something that I've talked about for years, and she's verifying what I'm saying, that somebody's going in and changing permissions that should not be changing. Um, and people having permissions that they shouldn't have, which I think Jay's probably going to touch on from an expertise level. And so this really needs to be resolved. And honestly, we can tie this into why we need a city charter, because we can create a framework where there are permission templates that are governed by city council and not just at the behest of the auditor, and then the auditor's fighting with a service director who's a former deputy auditor and wants to control everything. And then you have an IT administrator that is caught between the crosshairs of an auditor and a service director. And I mean, it's just, we're all in the same government. We should be working together. And why do you need permissions that you really shouldn't have? It's outside of your scope of authority. So I'm just glad that this is probably the one thing that Miranda has actually told the truth on, is there is an issue with permissions in the software. So I'm glad this is getting brought out. I'm glad we're going to talk about it tonight. I just kind of want to hear from Jay, your first thoughts on what she admitted.
I mean, I always reach out to former colleagues and things of that nature with the financial stuff, of course, because it's so complicated. But I've gone through PCI compliance on global scales, data centers, telecommunications centers. I posted screenshots where I've had permission wars, and I've been involved in investigations for permission wars at the corporate level. This is astounding to me. Now, them being able to override and go over a budget or exceed a budget, this is the kind of stuff that we were kind of trying to wonder about when you were getting ready to run for auditor. I was asking you questions about permission issues, and this just puts the icing on the cake. Segregation of duties is a huge one. We keep on hearing these things about administrative access, and we do have the screenshots, and I want to show them to Mayor Collins and people of that nature before I go publishing them. But we do have them, and they're compelling, and they're concrete proof, and verified from the New World software. So we know that there's a long history of permission issues in this software and configure issues in this software, and it's a problem. And we heard from our military veteran, Ralph. His last name is Smith. Sorry, it's been a long day. He had pretty high level security clearance. He used to work on, back then they called them mainframe servers, high level IT equipment, the Vietnam era. And he's in full agreement with this, as is the chair of the finance committee. We've talked to other people. And this has just been going on for so long. I asked you when you were still on council about these permission issues, and you said at that time you had heard about it. Everybody had heard about it, but not too many people would speak on it. I hadn't met Twyla yet, or any of the other people that I've talked to. But once you got to the auditor's office, of course, for the audience, I'll state I had to step away for family health issues for several years. My family kept me somewhat abreast to this, but I was not in the loop at all. And when I came back in and I started looking at this, I didn't just bring Robert into the team, and the whole team would testify to this. It took many months before I brought Robert in, because I had to go through all this stuff and try to figure out what was going on. And so one of the biggest things that we did, first off, was we started going through permissions dating back as far as we could. And at that time, it was 99. So we sent one of our researchers up to Columbus, or down to Columbus, and she pulled microfilm of audits from 83 forward. And these things are out of control. This is a long history of violations of segregation classification of duties and all kinds of IT standards and policies that are widely known in the technology industry. And it starts in 83 and it continues into the 90s. And we've got the auditor talking about illegal software. We've got the auditor of state talking about all kinds of crazy IT stuff. And I'll say it again, and I would say it to President Trump. This needs to be looked at very closely by highly qualified forensic IT investigators. Because this is a culture of disregard for IT policy, and blatantly it appears to be in breach of possibly federal and state laws. And it's just out of control. And the list goes on and on and on. We've got password sharing and security policy breaches, just all the way down and through the 90s. I haven't got to the articles in the in-between years yet, but we know that this was going on from firsthand accounts into the early 2000s. We came on the scene around real hardcore around 2010, 2012, and Dennis Potts was around. My family was around, and this is something that we've been looking at and hearing rumors of since we came on board. So it kind of, the rumors festered into us getting involved in enforcement, and then we got involved in the politics. And when we got involved in the politics, then we started getting kind of the headway and the the push to where it was supposed to be. So we figured out that it was probably somebody in one of the financial departments or somebody directly at City Hall. And when I left the scene, when everything happened with you, I was leaving right around the time they were trying to prosecute you for the ballots. And we had it narrowed down, I believe, Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we had it narrowed down to probably one of the same thing, financial offices or City Hall, more than likely one of the financial offices, and more than likely still probably the auditor's office or somewhere around there. Yeah, these financial things, I do understand that a lot of these things may have been accounted for. That's not the point here. The point here is showing that there is a long established history of disregarding IT control policies that are global standards. Any competent IT professional would look at this stuff and say, what is going on here? It's just out of control. And that's pretty much, I don't want to take up the whole show. We'll get to a show with just IT stuff.
You're good. No, if we can, Jay and Cody, if you want to chime in here on this, what to our listeners, what Jay's really talking about is with these permissions in the New World financial software, you have, let's say you have an account clerk at the fire department or wastewater treatment facility, and they're processing accounts payable, accounts receivable, whatever that's supposed to go to the city auditor's office. Well, they should not have any kind of permissions outside of that particular position. So whatever it takes to just accomplish their tasks. So to submit an account payable to the auditor's office or so on, whatever the case is, but they should not have any kind of override permissions. And that's what we're talking about here, where they can go in and say, okay, I don't have enough money in my supplies line item, but I could, technically they could go in and override that. Now, we're not saying they were doing that, because we haven't heard of any of those instances in recent memory, but the fact that it was opened up to where they could. And Jay, what I want to kind of talk about from your expertise level is the template and the permissions there for that, because every position should already be set to specific permissions. So why it would get changed, or for lack of a better word, manipulated to go outside of those parameters is what's concerning. And I would fight day in and day out with high level administrative officials to try to remove permissions from them that they shouldn't have. And then I would go back in the next day and it would be there. And I would be on the phone with New World saying, hey, this is going on. And they're like, well, we're fixing it, but we don't know why. It has to be somebody with administrative access. And I know you like that situation there. So What do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, when I hear from multiple, not just you, I've heard it from multiple officials. We've had Twyla on, we've talked to other people, Ralph, we've talked to more than Ralph, a lot more people. And it seems to be across the board that there was definitely some kind of crazy going on with the permissions. And that's one of the biggest reasons why, the team moved forward, after we all consulted together, including former Detective Dennis Potts, and contacted the auditor of state and demanded that they take a look at this and try to push for a forensic IT audit, because there will be call logs, or there should be call logs, and all kinds of logs, troubleshooting logs, access logs. I was just informed not too long ago that the city is talking about, I don't know if this was planned or this is a new development, but they were talking about replacing all of their IT equipment. And I made an immediate suggestion. I think I said it to Ralph, and I said it to Twyla and several other people. They need to take those servers and switches, whatever they're replacing out, don't recycle them. They need to lock them up, because that is physical evidence. Nothing's ever entirely erased unless those systems were not replaced that I know of, in this time span of 2019 to whenever. But what we would like to see is a forensic IT audit along with the financial audit, dating back to, if possible, the installation of the New World software. And that doesn't always have to be the servers. It can be logs, it can be code, it can be communications, emails, ledgers, things of that nature. And these segregation of duties and permission issues and permission wars, it's got to be getting to the bottom of. And I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it again. If I was, an operations manager over IT, which I have been, I would take this department over if it was a business, and I'd look at this evidence that I have right here in front of me. And you guys have the same access. Dennis has it. Everybody has it on the team. And I would go to the president of the company in writing, and I would say, this needs to be audited forensically immediately.
That's a great point.
It puts everybody in danger.
I think this is really highlighting a lot of structural issues. Again, going back to why there is a need for a charter. And I know we've talked about doing a separate episode on just the IT thing. I know today we're talking about on the money. I just think it was important for us to give a little bit of backdrop on why this is we're trying to take a holistic approach. We're looking at the big picture. This isn't just an IT issue. This isn't just an accounting issue. This isn't just a talent issue. It's all of it together. And so to our listeners, we're just trying to provide you a little bit of backdrop. Be on the lookout here soon. One of our next episodes is going to be on this IT situation. But Cody, going back to the whole this fiscal emergency or this fiscal caution, this is a pretty big development. I'm not aware of any communities in our area in recent time that's gone through that. You're the historian, though. Do you have any insight on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, there have been cities in the past. I think Cleveland is kind of the big example of when they went through that some years ago. And if you look across the country, it definitely happens every so often. But I think that you have to frame this whole situation within the proper parameters. Now, the current system, so the New World system, which we're talking about not having the necessary restrictions, parameters, whatnot, was installed when? Was it 2007, 2008?
2008, 2009.
2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, as far as from a historical or political perspective, it's important to look at what was going on in the city of Marion and nationally at that time. Okay, so Jack Kellogg was mayor, Republican, for 16 years. So he leaves office. His end of his term was 2000 and was it 5? Let me look.
Oh, you're talking about when was his last term?
06. So Scherzer's elected November.
Oh, seven.
Oh no, Scherzer was elected in 2003. So November of 03, Scherzer enters office in 04. Before that,
Well,
you had six.
Scherzer was on council from like 98 to
Oh,
08.
right.
Yeah, and
Okay,
then,
so
yeah.
yes, all right. I was looking at the wrong thing here. So he was elected in November of 07 as mayor. Prior to that, he was on city council.
Mhm.
So you also had kind of a changing of the guard within the auditor's office at that time,
Mhm.
as you had a long time Republican auditor, Bob Kramer, that left office at that same time. And then that was when Democrat Kelly Carr was elected alongside Scherzer in that November 2007 election. It also had Tom Panet as Democrat treasurer that was elected in November 2007. You also had Democrat Mark Russell as law director, and now he's been in that position since Moses was in short pants. So as you can see, you had quite a lineup going into 2008 of Democrats, and in addition, council with that class, there were 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So they take over after Bob Kramer's in the position for years,
Mhm.
and then they just so happen say, yeah, we're gonna invest in this new software, this new world software, pretty early on. Am I right? Is this all
Yeah,
factual?
and you're talking, and by investment, this was a literal investment. This was like at least 3/4 of a million to maybe even a million. I'm a little fuzzy on that. It was at least $750,000, and I believe they had to bond this out. So they had to take out debt notes just to pay for it because it was that expensive.
Yeah. So this is all just fact. Now we're just trying to frame this story with an earlier starting point, just to understand how do we get to where we're at today with this impending fiscal emergency situation. Okay. So they pretty much run the entire government. Every administrative position is held by a member of the Democratic Party, and
Mhm.
7 out of 9 city council positions are held by a member of the Democratic Party. They go in, they make a major expenditure in this new world system. I believe it's the usual argument, oh, for efficiency, for blah, 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 blah. Now, Jason obviously knows setting up systems and all that IT gobbledygook.
If I can
But,
interject for just like 30 seconds. So
all right, go
any
ahead.
IT professional will tell you that one of the most prime times for any kind of malicious activity or ghost accounts or rogue accounts or, non-permissible accounts, backdoors, is during a transition of a system like this.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
when you go to that vendor, anybody that's had experience dealing with, even me, I've had experience with that, where you go to that vendor of that software and they will customize it. It's not, here is our program, it works one way and one way only. No, they have the ability to customize to whatever your needs or desires are. So that means that it was a conscious decision, in my opinion. It's likely it was a conscious decision to either set it up that way from the beginning,
Right.
or if you had administrator permissions or administrator authority, then you kind of have the key to the city. So you can go into the system and make any changes that you want, manipulate anything you want. So there's that component too. Was it set up one way and then an administrator came in and customized it and changed it? Those are valid questions. Now, the other wild card in this whole scenario. So you have an incoming pretty much one party rule. And then you also have going on at the macroeconomic level and the national level, 2006, 2007, and then the Great Recession, 2008, that lingered on. And we can look at what was going on nationally with that. I mean, it was a mess. You had a severe housing crisis. If you look at the city of Marion, you look at not only a huge drop in the value of real estate, which that's going to hammer your receipts as the city of Marion for property taxes, but you also had a lot of foreclosures and short sales and everything else that was just, it was bad. So there would be an incentive from the macroeconomic, the national level of the economy to try to be creative. There would be an incentive for that. And if there was a way to manipulate it to make things not so bad by going into the system and being creative. Again, I'm just saying this is all speculation as a possibility. This is what needs to be investigated thoroughly. And Jason's done a lot of the investigation, looking at council minutes, looking at old newspaper articles, looking at any number of primary sources from the time. So we know there's something there. Okay. So we also have admissions that it was by those individuals that were within that administration that it was really, really rough. It was a very bad situation to go through. And we also know from the audit reports that they were way outspending, even what they were putting on the audit reports, they were way outspending what they had coming in at the time. So again, another potential incentive for them to manipulate that system as much as they could.
Yeah.
So that's the scenario, okay? And then what happens in 2017? Okay? Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Robert Landon, this young punk upstart from the first ward, goes and slays a giant. Slays Ralph Cumston, who'd been in office for 20 or 22 years or something like that on city council. That's pretty impressive by any political. I mean, as much as you want to hate on anybody, your political opponent or whoever it is, politics is not easy. It's not easy at any level. And you're going to be, no offense, Robert, wet behind the ears. I mean, you were politically. I mean, you were 27 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and you walk in, and anybody in their right mind would have said, the guy's been here for 20 years, 22 years. You know, he's the Democrat Party. There ain't no way I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And you did.
And
Now,
if I can interject,
yeah.
I partially because I wanted to. I didn't want my constituents for my first race to think I was beholden to anybody. So I self-funded my campaign. But also the Republican Party leadership even doubted me because they said, well, nobody's won this in like 70 years or whatever it was. And they even had some connections with the current council member there. So it was kind of like, yeah, we'll just leave him on his own. A little tap on the shoulder as a good boy here and there. And so, yeah, so there was no support, and I had to self-fund that campaign. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and that's all very relevant. It's one thing if you've got the establishment, if you've got all the powerful elite, you've got somebody that owns you, and you're the chosen one that they selected to win a race. That's one path. That's kind of the dishonorable path in my mind. There's nothing worse than a bought and paid for politician or a member of the establishment. So that wasn't the situation here. That's dangerous when you're talking about power politics, party politics, what trends are brewing. And if you have somebody who is kind of a upstart, somebody that isn't bought and paid for, isn't controlled by the establishment elite, you've got a lot of people that are going to be very concerned about what the future would bring with somebody like that. And say what you want about Donald Trump, there have been quite a few witch hunts, okay, in that situation, the whole Russia game, you name it. So that's going on at the same time that this was kind of all going on. And you had Marion that kind of switches, a big old giant red wave, comes in and changes this long time Democrat stronghold, Union Town, Union City, into this last election. It was like 70% of the city of Marion voted for Trump. I mean, it's been a dramatic change. So he wins that election, and he serves his 2-year stint on council. And if you look at the articles from the time, even when he was on council, there was acknowledgments. Marion Star editorial, says that, there's the Schertzer versus Robert Landon. Now, this was kind of, I think it was after you had announced that you were running for auditor and everything. But the die was already cast. I mean, it was already there. Then he announces that he's running for auditor up against Kelly Carr, another giant that had been in the auditor's office, a Democrat, been in the auditor's office since November 2007 when she won election. Well, she entered in January of 2008. And he wins. And on election day, you probably remember that election night very well, Robert. What did they do to you on election night, man?
Well, the sample ballot issue, prosecuting me on election day, had Columbus media at my house within like an hour. I mean, literally, they had to be on the road right at the time that Russell was filing the charges. I mean, you can just tell that it was a coordinated effort. They were leaking it to the press ahead of time. It was a coordinated effort. Josh Daniels was at the one of the polling locations. I remember with his truck, and there's a big old sign in there that said "Vote for Kelly Carr." She shows up, which, by the way, is why I put that in there in my recent post about the Charter Commission, because one, that was the dumbest thing ever. I was showing up more than she was on the campaign trail, that's for sure. And so it was just like you said, to Donald Trump, it was a local witch hunt. And I think we're going to get into maybe not this episode, but in the future on why they had so much incentive to try to keep me out. For all the things that has been said about me and for all the propaganda that's been propagated since then, you have to ask yourself, okay, even if you think Robert Landon's this incompetent guy or whatever the case is, before this was before any of the IRS stuff happened. Why would you bring charges on election day? Why? What did they fear about Robert Landon? What did they fear about being found out in the office? Was it just simply breaking up a power structure? Was there some nefarious things going on behind the scenes they didn't want to be found out? It really begs the question why they had such a concerted effort. And also kind of what I was talking about in the last episode, Schertzer himself never really had an opponent that was A plus, maybe even B plus. I mean, a lot of candidates that were just didn't put in a lot of effort to win the election. So he kind of coasted through all of these election cycles, and so didn't Kelly Carr. Same thing with her. So I think I was the first one on the doorstep that was knocking, and they're like, okay, and we got to address this. And so what better to do than, cook up some kind of dumb charges on election day that got dismissed twice by judges not in Marion, and said, basically rebuked Russell and said these were like frivolous charges, so to speak. A rookie attorney would have known better, a rookie prosecutor. But Mark Russell, he likes to outsource everything. So he filed the charges and let some other visiting prosecutor handle it, but which is what he was supposed to do. But it should have never even been brought to begin with, because I was a sitting council member. He had a duty to defend me. He had a duty to defend the city and to avoid any kind of appearance of impropriety. And especially on the election day, don't even bring the charges. Give it to another prosecutor. Say, hey, is this warrant investigation? Because I will say this, and I'll hand it back over to you, Cody. The secretary, the Board of Elections here in Marion, obviously got the complaint, and they reached out to the Secretary of State's office, their legal counsel, and the legal counsel advised, yeah, there's really nothing here. And they just said, hey, don't do it anymore. Just kind of avoid the issue. They wanted it to go away and basically say, hey, there's nothing here. And Russell still chose to prosecute. So if that tells you anything about Mark Russell.
Jade, I'm sent you a message there. Pull up that campaign flyer.
I'm grabbing it. It takes me a second.
Okay.
And
because it comes down to not only did they, so this campaign flyer, as I understand, Robert, and correct me if I'm wrong on my retelling of this, it was a document that was created by a group of Republicans, right? So it was what, John Matthews. Was he the one that created it? Did you guys collaborate on it? What was the deal?
I didn't touch it at all until it came to me to actually pass it out. So the whole backdrop is that Councilman Jason Schaber had heard that the Democrats were doing this, and so he told John Matthews, which I think he knew that wasn't true anyway. I think it was just a setup from the beginning. And so John Matthews drafted the document or put the paid for by Republican, Marion County Republican Party on there, highlighted the individuals that were running as Republican, and then gave it to Michael Saad, who was running for First Ward. And, it's kind of interesting how Michael Saad, they kind of just let him go because I was the heavy hitter that year. And so they really wanted to come after me. And I didn't even really need to do this. I was, as I've said before, I've always been a team player. I was out helping all the candidates, as I always did. And I was out campaigning with Michael Saad, and he didn't have enough campaign literature. He ran out. So that's what we used. I had plenty of campaign literature myself. But because he didn't have anything with his name on it, I was passing it out with him. And obviously, if I felt like there was something wrong, the Democrats would say otherwise because, they think they know me better than me. But my character would be to not do that, obviously. And so that's how that happened. It wasn't some, they've tried to, talk about conspiracy theories. They love to concoct these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and they went to, as I understand it from the research that I've done, this was handed over by Kelly Carr to Mark Russell, right?
See, you know what's interesting about that is there is she had an employee that was in her office who now works as I think he's like an account clerk for the Marion Police Department, and he knows who he is. I just ran into him recently, actually, and I'm not going to mention his name because he's just an employee, so we'll leave him out of this. But he worked for Kelly Carr, and he got a ballot on his doorstep and turned it into Kelly Carr. And then Kelly Carr allegedly turned it into Mark Russell. But there's two different stories because I can't remember which way it goes, but in the police report and then in the Marion Star, it's like one says that it went straight to Kelly Carr and then she turned it in, and then one says that it was the employee and he turned it in, so that like the stories don't even match up. But yeah, that's how it happened. It landed on his doorstep. He really turned it into Kelly, and then obviously Kelly is like, she got a relationship with Mark over the years and turned it into him. So
yeah, and immediately it is blown up as far as a huge news item. It's a huge scandal. And the argument that was trying to be made was that if you received this, that you would think that this was like your ballot to vote. That's the logic of the argument against anything is that, I'm confused. I'm an absolute blithering idiot. I'm going to look at this and be like, this is my ballot. I have to use this one, or some bullshit like that.
Yep.
The mere fact that they were just, grasping at for anything that they could try to take you out or at least tie you up legally using lawfare. This is ridiculous. I mean, and what they did is you went on or Matthews or whoever it was went on the Marion County Board of Elections, and you can print like a sample ballot. It clearly says sample. Now, this copied document or scanned document, it's a little bit more difficult.
I'm trying to get the original. I'm trying to get the original article that we put out in 2019, I believe it was. I've got the check sheet. We had a cyber attack.
Keep this up though, Jay, and
I will
scroll up just a tad on this image. Okay, so this sample ballot was, prepared or produced by the Marion County Board of Elections website. And then they added, I think at the bottom, scroll down just a tad.
Wait, are you saying, Cody, is this a public record? Like just anybody can go print this off?
Yeah, I requested it from Marion City Police Department when we first came back up, I believe, or shortly thereafter.
Right. So that was one of our arguments, was this was a First Amendment violation. Anybody has the right to print this off.
Yeah, so again, and he ended up winning that night,
and
defeating Kelly Carr.
I gotta say this too, because I've seen comments from some of these former officials, current officials, and some of their supporters, and like, well, because it was shot down by the judge didn't mean he wasn't guilty. What? Like, can we like just acknowledge the absolute delusion of these people? I mean, again, going back, I mean, these people are really just like nuts, like just conspiracy theory nut job.
Embarrassing. It really is. You're going to tell me that if you receive this, something that says sample all over it, that is already pre-selected, with paid for by the Marion County Republican Party, you're going to be that stupid? It's just like this argument that this left-wing podcaster in Marion, I forget his name, he goes on there and somebody made a meme using political satire saying that, oh, 12 million residents of Ohio came to Marion to protest
Yeah.
Trump with a picture
Yeah.
of him. And he goes on his left-wing podcast and he says, oh, well, people could have really thought that I said this, and it's going to like confuse them. And it had a button saying Proud Democrat on my shirt. If you think that people are that freaking stupid, then we might as well just hang it up, guys. Because
Cody.
if that's where people are at, no, that's where a certain segment of this population that usually has a D. There are good Democrats, I'll give them that, but they're rarer than hen's teeth, boys. So that's my
Cody,
rant on that.
no, that's a great point because it just shows their elitist mindset that they think that the people in Marion are this dumb to just buy in to the just the dumb stuff that they say all the time. And they just think that they can be loud and roar on the radio or be keyboard warriors on Facebook or whatever. It just going back to like what they were saying about me when I was on my near deathbed with COVID, when I was in auditor's office. And just ranting and railing, still didn't even let up. I mean, it just shows how much of a coward they are. Like they're just straight up cowards that they hide behind law, they hide behind Facebook, they hide behind the radio, and they have to have this army of Democrats to even fight one man, who was the rookie, so to speak. This incompetent man. If this guy was just not a threat, and we're talking about me, of course, why did they have to go to such great lengths to prosecute me on election day, fight me every day with the unions, fight me every day with their narrative and everything that they've done? It says more about them than it does us. And I know that people have woken up to just the lies and the propaganda in our community that, oh, okay, so they were just being loud. But really, when you look through, it's just smoke and mirrors is all it is.
Well,
So this is
then they double down on it. So not only do they take it to Marion Municipal Court, they lose there, then they appeal it. So the cost and the energy and the effort that they could have actually, been using to solve or prosecute some other case that actually had substance to it, actually had legs to it, and they decide to go on a political witch hunt. That says a lot. That says a lot to me. And you got to say why. Why would they be so concerned about this? Well, if you put it in the context that they controlled the party from January 2008 on, they had every position: the treasurer, the auditor, the mayor, 7 out of 9 council. They have this new financial system. We go through this the largest financial uh, disaster since the Great Depression. That doesn't kind of flash a big old red light in your face to say, that might make some sense. Let's maybe consider that as a possibility.
Yeah.
Because the other argument is just June 2020, one of your employees, your deputy auditor, Kim Hutchinson, makes a mispayment that doesn't get caught for what, 5 months.
Yeah.
And then you guys immediately submit payment to the IRS for the withholdings or whatever that was due, $1.28 million. And that ruined the world. That issue just snowballed and caused all the problems. I admit, and I know you've admitted it, that she made a mistake. That was a mistake. And it wasn't caught right away. It took a couple months. It's, I think people understand that. But what doesn't make sense to me is how you can't look a little bit further in historical context.
Yeah.
At least look. if these audit reports are perfect, and we all know that, like, they're not going and doing forensic audits when
Right.
the state of Ohio comes in. They're not going in there and uh, looking under every frickin' rock. That's not how it's done, right, Robert? You did go through an audit.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and they look at pretty much the same thing every year. They tell you what they're going to audit. You know ahead
Oh,
of time.
look what I found.
What's that?
Remember when the screenshots of the New World System leaked out on the internet as part of the political games?
Yeah.
I think this is Mr. Sad. Yeah, I found
Yes.
that. This is an old article, an archive article,
Yep.
that I'm pulling up and going through just so the
Mhm.
viewers can see. We've been at this for a long time. We didn't start this in January. We started this in what, Landon, 18, 17,
Mhm.
somewhere around there,
Yeah.
looking at this stuff. So this has been going on. So we
Oh, there's a
definitely,
nice sample. There's a nice
oh, yeah.
sample ballot.
Yeah, that's the irony of the whole thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
they did it they did it differently, and it's campaign literature. It's fine. It's fine to do it as campaign literature. Like, that's the whole thing. And but going back to your point about this whole, we're talking about on the money, folks. We're talking about the actual money situation going on in Marion, and how this is not started, to Cody's point, about a IRS mispayment in 2020. Okay. Corporations, businesses make mispayments or mistakes all the time. Yes, we agree. They should not happen. Okay.
and you admitted
But
to overlooking it, but there's more behind
yeah,
it.
yeah, we self-reported it to the auditor of state and self-corrected it. This wasn't like caught by somebody else. It wasn't caught by the auditor of state or
You mean
shirts.
like Brenda's 3 years
Right,
later because
right.
there were no financial controls in place? Yeah.
Exactly. So, but going back to the whole thing about putting everything into context, like what Cody's been talking about, when we look at the Carr administration, former auditor Kelly Carr, her first, Jay, 5 years of audits were just
I
atrocious.
just went through all those. They're on here. They're on the website. They're just a little weird because
Yeah,
I don't have time to go through all of them and redo them all.
right.
We
And
had,
then you got,
you were around when we had that cyber attack. We lost both websites.
Mhm.
So this is one of the probably 50 articles that we lost.
Yeah. And then you got people out there like Councilman Jason Schauber just talking down to people like they're dumb. Like, well, some of these audits, they're just so hard to understand, and even experienced people don't understand them. But in reality, they're just making it sound like it's worse than it really is. It all started with Robert Landon. And I've showed these people the trial balance report that was way off. Jay, Cody, you guys have seen it. We've pointed out before in previous articles about the audits for the first several years of the Carr administration and how they exceeded appropriations. They didn't have controls. Why would you buy $1 million software in the in the height of the Great Depression? To Cody's point, I mean, we're talking about people who were not making good decisions, and just completely blast me. And it's very ironic, isn't it, that the people with the most dirt are always the ones that's slinging the most dirt, and they all know it. That everybody sees it. Nobody's dumb here, contrary to what they think. The average American and the average Marionite is dumb. No, people can see through the lies. And so when we pull up the receipts here on those audits, the proof is in the pudding. They didn't manage the money right for the first several years. They couldn't even agree on a process. The state auditor's office even told me that it took them several years to agree on how to reconcile and how to manage the software. I do want to just kind of quickly put this in here, Cody, and then back to you. One thing I wanted to point out was, and this was in 2020, my first year, how we knew that things were so off is that typically you would run what's called a statement of cash position report in New World. And that is supposed to tell you how much cash you have total, but it would break it out by fund. And the city does fund accounting. There's a lot of funds on the books, and it would tell you how much money you're supposed to have in each fund. But then you would pull a cross fund report, which is what we were also told by the auditor of state that you would pull to get the accurate balance, because they told us that the statement of cash position was not the real one. It didn't give you the right data. You would have to pull the cross fund report, which is contrary to what New World would tell us. And neither one of those reports matched up. the cross fund report would give you one balance, and then the statement of cash position would give you another balance. And I remember sitting there in my office talking to, Deputy Auditor Martin Watts, like, does this make sense to you? And he's like, I don't understand this. And we would just talk to them about it, and they would just say, hey, this is what we've always done. We've always used a cross fund report. So we would go off the cross fund report because they're supposed to be the experts, right? And it goes to show all of the, even the former deputy auditor had mentioned this about how, she would brag about how she had to go do this roundabout process to make things work because she just knew the software so well. Well, that's dangerous, because why does only one person know how well the software works? Like, shouldn't everybody here that's working with the software be that well trained? I mean,
So
I see it.
This system of workarounds to get around these software flaws, which we now know as of what was the date, 2021 from the council minutes, was flawed from its installation by admittance on the record. This is really bothering me. And anybody out there that's in IT would be like, what? It went on for how many years?
Mm-hmm.
These workarounds and things like that are going on for, I don't know, a decade or more, Robert. I don't even know, because nobody can give me a straight answer, but it went on for a long time, and this is not okay. You're talking about millions of dollars of budget. What was the Marion City budget when you were in office, Mr. Landon?
When my last year in office, I think we were at a $65 million budget.
That's a whole lot of money.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. But into perspective too, this whole thing about the $154,000 mistake, that's been forgiven. Like, I didn't get to see that through, obviously, because I resigned, but I had worked with Congressman Jim Jordan's office. They had an IRS advocate. We was doing everything we could to try to remedy the situation. Obviously, we didn't want there to be a penalty. But here's the other thing that they gloss over. Jason Schaber and all these wannabe attack dogs. Kelly Carr didn't have any mistakes, and they had clean audit reports in 2019. What? This guy is blind as a bat because he apparently can't read that Kelly Carr had a $22,500 IRS penalty her last year in office, folks. So if she was such a good auditor, why are you having IRS penalties in your last year? Granted, it's less than 154, but if you want to talk about the principle of it, because these people are virtue signaling every day and want to put her on this pedestal, the facts are not on your side. I'm sorry.
So Cody, when you look at this as a financial expert, sorry, Robert, I didn't mean to.
You're good.
What is your background in finance, Mr. Cody?
I mean, I've worked in finance for 15 years, not
like
accounting,
management,
anything like that. But no. Again, that's the secondary to me. How do you establish guilt in a court of law?
Evidence,
motive, means, and opportunity. So you got to say, in the context of why would you set something up like this? Why would you? It's just it's a theory at this point.
right?
Now there's supporting evidence, but you'd have a motive to undermine somebody because they would be a potential challenge to you. The means, obviously, you have the means because you set up the system with these backdoor access and controls and override and blah, blah, blah. An opportunity, you could do it whenever you wanted to, it sounds like. So I think, to me, that's the biggest thing, is that you have to get it out of your mind that everything was hunky-dory, everything was sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows in the sky up until June of 2020. I think it was June 26th or something like that. Was that right? June 20th, 2020.
Are you talking about in 2020? Yeah, it was June Well, and it wasn't really hunky dory because you got to think in March is when COVID hit. We went remote most of the part and kind of had a little bit of hybrid here and there, but it was mostly remote. And then in June, my payroll specialist, who I didn't fire, contrary to what they were saying, I went in there and fired everybody. No, she was a holdout from the Kelly Carr administration, and she had been in that position for 10 years. She had an unfortunate death in the family, and she went on bereavement leave for a month. I did not have to approve bereavement leave and let her just take all this time. I felt compassion for the lady because it was tragic. And COVID was going on, right? So, but we were like, hey, as long as maybe you can help if we have questions. We really didn't get any help. And so when she left, I had to put somebody in charge of payroll. Something we haven't really gotten into yet, though, is, as much as I didn't want to do it, I had to swallow my pride and I had to go to the former deputy auditor. And I even asked, hey, can you help us? Because we have not done this yet. I've not even had anybody cross-trained yet. We just got in office. COVID's happening.
And you're referring to Kathy Chafin, right?
Correct. We're referring to Kathy Chafin, who was the deputy auditor. But when we went to her, she's like, well, because it was like Tuesday or something that week. And she's like, well, we're too late in the game. I would have to start from scratch. And then we wouldn't even be able to pay people on time. I'm like, no, that's not happening because you know how many people are relying. I mean, unfortunately, people live paycheck to paycheck. So what's that going to do to their family? Are they going to have food? Are they going to be able to pay their bills? I felt like that was just going to be a catastrophic issue for our employees and their families. So I'm like, no, we're going to plan B. Plan B, Kim Hutchinson, our other deputy auditor, who was at the fire department for 26 years doing the books for them on the
Wait a minute. I thought that all of your staff didn't have any experience.
There goes them facts again, Jay. They just not on their side. So Tim Hutchinson, 26-year employee with New World, but hadn't done payroll to that level. We called New World and we had them remote access her computer to help her do payroll from A to Z, right? Which she did. But then you take this, what is it called, a CSV file or something like that, and you upload it into our middleman software called Magic Writer, which is what would basically take all the ACH information for our employees and pay them out through our bank accounts at Fahey Bank at the time. Well, when she uploaded that file, she accidentally deleted the IRS account to where you upload the file to there to actually pay out your W-2 wage taxes. So when she goes to put it back in, she's like, oh, it's not there. So I've got to find out where's this IRS ACH information. So we call Magic Writer because they're supposed to have everything, right? They're our ACH provider. Well, they gave her the state of Ohio ACH information, not the IRS. How is she going to know any better that she's paying the state of, that's not just something you have. It was in the software that we did not install. It was already in there. So
that's a very
unbeknownst to her,
point. Yeah.
Unbeknownst to her, she puts it in there. And for 6 months, we were paying the state of Ohio $1.2 million over a 6-month period. And then here's the other issue. Why did the state of Ohio not tell us about an overpayment? Why did the IRS not tell us about an underpayment? It certainly never reached me. So there's just so many holes in this narrative that they have.
This ACH payment is what got me going this time around when I came back on, because what happens if you go on, you guys will know this, you're not tech guys, but you'll know this. What happens if you go on eBay or Amazon and you type in an incorrect length digit code for your credit card number?
Right. It shouldn't even take it.
Exactly. That's my point. Keep going.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because it just goes to show that some of this
it's called exact length verification.
Right. There's just
and it
not
is built into financial software. It should be, unless it's misconfigured or flawed.
Exactly. So there's just not the controls that should have been there. So again, we're just trying to show the whole picture, give you all the facts, because for years, the stuff that has been parroted by the Democrats and their attack dogs, even the Rhino attack dog, that this is just a mistake Robert Landon made. And, and it wasn't even my mistake, it's something that happened under my watch. And so I've had to take accountability for years, despite Some of the people on there saying I haven't. I have. But at the same time, did we have to drag Shirker through the mud back in 2015 for a utility billing employee stealing money, who was a report of his, and technically Kelly Carr, who would have overseen the money aspect. So, but that kind of got swept under the rug. It made it in the Marion Star, but there wasn't really any attacks, and Republicans were weak at the time. They didn't really attack. So it just kind of got swept under the rug. And now they had to highlight a mistake and blow it up into something that, we're talking about two separate things, folks. The IRS mistake did not cause the audit issues. That's something else we're going to have to address here if we have time.
So when you came into office, I'll just ask you this. You can touch on it quick. We'll get to the IT stuff and all that crazy later. But when you came into office, did anybody tell you anything about software issues, or that the thing, the reconciliation process? Or I'm not a financial guy. I understand the tech. But did anybody tell you that this was a problem, that there were software problems, that there was no reconciliation module, that there were software controls turned off? This has all been verified by current administration in Veritas. So this is fact.
No, nobody told me that, and they didn't have an incentive to. They wanted me to fail. And then also they couldn't let you think, or me think, or all of us think that, they built this house of cards, so to speak, because we're talking about a new world financial software that there's several cases out there where they've been litigated against by local governments with a lot of issues. Unfortunately, it has the potential to be good software, but it was not installed right. And when you're not using a bank reconciliation module and you're using Excel to do this, that's a big issue for a government. This isn't, Cody doing his household finances on an Excel sheet. This isn't me. This is the city of Marion. So we shouldn't really be doing it that way. We should be using the $116,000 software we pay for annually. So going back to what we were talking about with the $1 million we paid for this software originally, there's annual maintenance fees we've paid for this software every year. When I left, it was like $116,000 for a yearly maintenance fee. And then that didn't include, guys, when I got in there, we asked for training, and it cost us like $4,000 or $5,000 to do like a 2 or 3 day training. And that's without using the bank reconciliation module.
Wow. Like I said, there's so many layers to this onion, and you have to peel all of them back. And it goes even beyond, in my personal opinion, and I know Jay, you agree, it goes beyond 2008. Marion has been in a pretty significant decline since the 1970s. And you have to put it in the context with that as well. Now, these particular events. So how did we get here? How did we get to the point where we're in a potential fiscal emergency? That is a shorter window, I think, to really look closely at what happened. But it's not 2020 to 2025. It's not that short. You got to go back to understand everything. You have to go back to 2008. You got to go back to when the system was purchased, installed.
And even before that, because there were loose controls even way before all that.
Right, but the system that's my opinion. Now, Jay, you may want to go back to 1983 or 1970 or 1850. That'd be a lot of work. I think definitely the economy collapsed in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s. So that, from a historic standpoint, just practically from the overall economy of the city of Marion, I agree. That's where you want to kind of frame things. But I think if you go back to 08, you're probably going to really get most of the meat off of the bone. Would you agree with that, Jay? As far as
Yeah, I would
any
agree that if
potential shenanigans that were done, whether it be by deliberate, whether misfeasance, malfeasance, whatever you want to say. So
system was
and it,
definitely, yeah.
yeah, there continued to be persistent issues, not only with the systems themselves, but also who knows what continued. We have Miranda McGinnis that just on Monday removed the override authority. Now, I doubt that she even knew how to go in on her own and do that. She probably had to have the auditor of state or contact New World or whoever the hell it was to tell them that this needs to be changed. So we don't know how long people have had access, how long these general ledger line items have been run into the
It's
red.
absolutely terrifying from an IT standpoint, let alone a financial standpoint. Loose controls like this are just wow.
Yeah. So that's the uphill battle.
Well,
And because Veritas spent years, $285,000 or whatever it was, and they basically threw up their hands and said, "This can't be. We can't help you with this."
hmm.
That doesn't bode well for the prospects of any corrective action plan not leading to a fiscal emergency declaration for the city of Marion. So people are going to be looking into this stuff. So we can either talk about it and we can try to frame it correctly to where maybe we can get some real answers. And that's what I'm trying to do.
That's what I'm
And
trying to
God, Jay,
do.
you've been trying to do this for years. And Robert, you were the victim of a lot of the spin. I mean, is there any culpability to a mispayment and whatnot within, by Kim Hutchinson while he was auditor? Yeah, it happened. And then we'll talk about, a couple other things that happened in the office. But you have to, you got to put things in context. That's all I'm saying. So
Yes,
we're gonna talk about this because it's just gonna get bigger. We got the report, the findings coming out on November 10th. That's going to
Right.
be a huge unveiling, and we're going to see what the auditor of state has to say about the situation in the city of Marion with its finances.
yeah, and
So
Lee emailed her or them. I don't know who it is right now. They changed offices, and I was out of the game for a while. And I'm not real political. Everybody knows that I'm tactical, technical, and I like to write. So, Lee emailed them many months ago, and they did respond back, and they seemed pretty concerned. And we didn't do this on the whim. I consulted everybody in my family that's been involved in his pots. Anybody that was on the core team, either in the group chats or outside, and we all made an agreement to. This is serious. Like, we're not playing around. It's not a game. It's not a political stunt. This is serious stuff. And these lax IT controls and financial controls, they got to figure out what's going on. And these people that don't have any IT expertise operating systems that are this complicated is absolutely out of control. There needs to be access matrix. There needs to be a change control process where it's all documented every single time a change is made. That's how it works in the real world in IT. When there's a permission change, it is documented and approved. You don't just go in and make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for the record.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because you're not talking about small budgets and stuff. You're talking 50, 60, 70 million-dollar a year budgets. So this is big money, big time. And um, to have this lack of professionalism. So if it's an issue where it was just negligence or incompetence going on for years, that people didn't know any better, they didn't have somebody like Jason Foreman saying, hey man, you need to have these parameters set up and this is the proper procedure for this reason, XYZ. If that's it, or maybe it worked perfectly. Maybe there's something more sinister and they kept it that way so that they could manipulate it.
That's why we
Within
need to do this. Like, right.
that, right. Those are the questions that need answered. And we're going to put it out there. We've got a lot of receipts. There's a lot of stuff to go through.
I mean, I've got 2 terabytes of data for the past 16, 17, 18 years that we've been doing this. So yeah. We've got some stuff.
And it's going to come out. Again, this is a big deal. I personally think, my opinion, I think it should have been done a while ago. And if
as soon as they found those permission issues and those, reconciliation modules and these switches turned off, there should have been an IT audit ordered immediately. I don't expect Mayor Collins, no offense, all respect given, these guys are doing their best, absolutely. But the IT people in charge are responsible to know this stuff. They're responsible to know the laws and the policies and the global accepted policies for IT, period.
Right. Well, the fact is, honestly, and I know, Cody, you're trying to get to, we need to talk about part 2 here. We're going to do a part 2 episode, but it just really, I mean, with the charter, there's just people that need to go. I mean, you've got deputy auditors, you've got an auditor, you've got an IT administrator, you've got a law director. I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to say you got clean house with the whole city, obviously, but they're like those key positions have got to go. Those people have got to be turned over to new blood. We need new people in there. And honestly, Mayor Collins has the ability to kind of put some pressure on this. And I think he's trying. And, that's what, if he wants to be more effective as a mayor, I hope he does consider that, because I think we'll see his administration go from 5 to 10 like that, just real quick, because you have people in there that's trying their best and really going to renovate, so to speak. And that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, we have some qualified people right now on council, definitely, and on the finance board, definitely.
Yeah.
But I can't stress enough the seriousness of this situation, and I think it's going to be made clear very soon to everybody. November 10th, probably going to have a lot better understanding. But I would probably put a freeze on discretionary spending, and I don't know what that does to the charter, to be honest, or the potential goals of that and what that looks like, because this is big time. We don't know anything. It really is kind of akin to, you're a 5-year-old kid and you picked up your parents' checkbook and you go to the toy store and you know how to sign your parents' name or whatever, but you don't know how much money's in the account. You can just write checks. There you go.
I mean, before we close, I'll give you a quick story of when I was learning. I've been in IT since I was Javen's age. I've been doing this stuff my entire life. It's a well-known fact. So when I took one of my first IT jobs, my real IT jobs, I was put in charge of an Active Directory structure, which is a kind of complicated server structure that dictates all the permissions and what people can access. And I accidentally gave the wrong permission group the wrong permissions, and it was really bad. Like, they caught it real quick because we had change control processes in place. They saw that I made the mistake and they changed it like that. But it could have been all bad because I didn't yet understand the implications of my actions. And that file access that I gave was actually to an HR file system. And I gave it to the entire floor on accident. I didn't mean to. I was a junior, you know what I mean? But that's the kind of crazy that can happen, especially outside of a change control process, which is how it's supposed to work in the real world. If there's a change made, it is documented every single time.
Yeah. Well, lots more to discuss on this, so stay tuned. We'll always have our upcoming episode on what the subject matter is going to be on our Facebook page, which is Operation Marion Watchmen. So be sure to check that out for the upcoming episodes. Jay does a really good job keeping that, keeping those posted ahead of time.
That's a lot, man. This is 24. You guys know you're in the groups. It's 24 hours a day.
Yeah, it's a heavy burden for sure, and especially on a topic like this. One, it's so important, and two, you're going back. There's tons of documents to parse through,
And it's got to be
and
right. Right.
you're right, and you got to make sure that you're being honest with it, and that's all that we're trying to do, and place it in the proper context. So bear with us, join us as we travel down the rabbit hole in this fun mess. So until tomorrow night, we've got Ron Prater. He confirmed for tomorrow, right? What times are we doing? 7:30?
7:30.
7:30. Tune in here or on YouTube. If you haven't been to the YouTube page, get your asses over there and like it, follow it, and you can watch it live on Facebook. And then if you want to watch reruns of your favorite episodes of the Watchmen's Report, you can do so there on the archive on YouTube. And I'm
It's
sure
also
there's
on the
a lot of,
webpage too. Yep.
yeah, and on the webpage. And what's the webpage, Jay?
MarionWatch.com.
MarionWatch.com. He does a great job managing that. So be sure to check that out as well. So until tomorrow night, don't have it be okay. God'll take care of you. He will. He will. So for Jason Foreman, Robert Landon, I'm Cody Higley. Have a good night.
Have a good night.